Hello, and welcome to Code Lavender podcast, where we're going to talk about what really matters beneath the scrubs. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley, and today we're going to pull back the curtain on something that is quietly breaking our healthcare system from the inside. I have a couple guests with me today, so I want to take a minute, let them introduce themselves. So to my left, I have Tanya.
Hi, it's nice to meet everyone. I am an LPN and I am enrolled in the RN program. Really looking forward to diving into this topic today, Ashley. Unfortunately, burnout is something that we are feeling at the level of students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And to my right, I have Charmaine.
So, hi everyone. I'm Charmaine. I've been a nurse for about 28 years, 21 in the clinical setting, mostly on night shift. So I know a lot about burnout. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we burn the candle at both ends and how we struggle to meet all our commitments.
Yeah. So night shift, interesting topic. I'm going to get into that in a little while, but I delusionally worked night shift for 14 years thinking I was doing this really cool thing for my kids, and clearly not. But today we're going to talk about just that phenomenon of emotional distress in healthcare and really look at burnout and PTSD because it's real. So, of course, I was looking at just statistics, and my favorite organization, the World Health Organization, really talks about burnout, and it truly is a work-related syndrome. It results from chronic workplace stress that's unsuccessfully managed, and it really can't be managed. Of no surprise to me, it is not recognized as a diagnosis in the United States. However, in all European major countries, it is. It has coding, it has treatment modalities and reimbursement. Looking at a survey in 2023 from the ANA, they found that 56% of nurses who were willing to share were experiencing burnout. And then globally, they report that 25% of any healthcare professional is identifying with some symptom of burnout. So looking at another great organization, the International Council of Nurses, they reported that in 86% of all countries, nurses are experiencing both violence and verbal abuse at work.
Wow.
So this is definitely not an isolated phenomenon. I think we all know it exists. Domestically here in this country, 50% of all hospital and healthcare related workers are reporting burnout. Nurses have the highest percentage, of course. Physicians are right behind them. Mm-hmm. And then other just non-clinical staff are there. And this is from multiple different sources. So, we really want to kind of get into it and look and see, what can we do? What are we doing? What's effective? What's not effective? When we look at the ICD-10 classification and ICD-11, which is the newer psychological criteria, burnout is characterized by emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and reduced personal accomplishments. So, I think kind of leaning towards the two of you, what do you guys see as burnout? Do you think you experience it? How's that look like?
For me, I'm feeling that the emotional exhaustion is something that's really profound because I really do try to give each of my patients that empathetic care. I really want to feel it for them from their side. And there's only so many times per day that I can get that fresh energy and give it to them the way they deserve. And each one of them deserves it. But when you're a ratio of, 1 to 20 patients, and some places it's higher, particularly in long-term care, it can be very, very challenging to keep that fresh level and stay on top of all of the other things that we need to keep, the pharmacology, the timing, triage, everything. So for me, I think emotional exhaustion is probably one of the biggest things that I'm feeling.
When we look at burnout and we think about the consequences of it, we look at how long we're going to stay, our longevity at jobs, right? So our turnover is really related to how happy we are at the bedside. Not only that, but our happiness at the bedside impacts our patient care. So we look at what happens when I'm angry and I come to work. Do I pass that on to our patients? Is that fair to them? What are the consequences internally? There's a lot of studies that say that, a happy employee makes a happy customer. I think it's even more important in healthcare to look at it from that perspective.
That's a great point.
Well, and I think we know, like, over the almost 30 years I've been a nurse, and in this arena, we are churning a business in healthcare, and that's not what it was when I started. We were there to take care of patients. It was really different, and now the demands that are put on staff and the expectations, and it's really kind of, well, do you want me to take care of the patient, or did you want me to document all of that and do all of these things? So, and it kind of really goes down to a really interesting thing. And I think this does not get any real clout or recognition, but burnout, untreated, unrecognized, ignored, really leads to a psychiatric diagnosis or a behavioral health, however we want to be appropriate, of truly PTSD. We hear a lot about PTSD when we talk about veterans, when we talk about police officers. We don't really acknowledge that it exists in this profession. And we have a lot of PTSD. And when you look at the manifestations of it, it's really the same. We all experience the same stuff. And really what happens is you go through all of this exposure and experiences, and you get these conditions that heighten your vulnerability. And, we're exposed to trauma routinely, and we don't get a break from it. You deal with this trauma and you're getting the next one on your plate. You have no time to even grieve, mourn, or digest what just happened. So you take that emotional exhaustion, the pressure that exists. How many times this shift did you have a patient die? Or did you have a patient deteriorate so badly that they got transferred somewhere? The moral injury, because I was in administration for such a long time, and I had an obligation to let my staff know what they had to do better. But how many times did I actually tell them what they were doing good? And, I tried to change that, but it's hard. And then we take on the workplace violence that exists. I always tell people it's comical to me. I laugh every year when the statistics come out. So nurses, we are the most trusted profession in this country. It's voted that way every year, over and over again. What else are we the most blank profession? Do you know? You know, because you're my student.
Underpaid therapists.
Yes. Where's the money? Where is the money?
100%.
Oh, the money's there.
No. So we are the most statistically assaulted profession. And
not just physically, but sexually as well.
Sexually assaulted, physically assaulted, emotionally assaulted. And when I looked at statistics on that, I don't have them in front of me, but it is very rare that it is actually reported or charges are pressed.
Yes.
So that's certainly, it's profound, it's eye-opening, but we all just kind of, it might even be, I think we live in that world of, well, this is what I do for a living, and this is what happens to me. And I'm going to get through the shift and deal with it tomorrow.
But sometimes that's from administration too. We look at those incidences of abuses, and they don't take them seriously. Sometimes we hear stories about nurses that say administration comes back and says, "What did you do to provoke that?" So that's also like the blaming the victim thing that happens a lot.
Yeah. Something that really struck me, though, Ashley, was a story you had told me about a patient you had lost during COVID. It was a Spanish man, and it's still stuck with you to this day. And that's such a specific example of the post-traumatic stress.
Yeah. And he was a young gentleman, and I still see his smile and whatever. And he had a daughter, 5 years old. He adored her, and he came in, he was sick, and he was, in the beginning kind of doing okay. And I really felt like this is the one guy that's going to rally. He's going to do this. Yeah. He didn't really have any good comorbidities that would have made him set up for such failure. But in my conversations with him, he let me know that he knows when he's going to die because he watched each one of his roommates die at a certain point in time. Right. And he had the day calculated, and he did die that day. he died on day 10, just like he said he would. And, you know, I remember just talking to him, like, stay positive, we're here. And then I watched him kind of just go down the toilet and circle the drain, and there was nothing to do. And I think, like, you know, there's patients I have had over the years in so many different circumstances in which it just, you know, there are those patients that you never, ever, ever forget.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think since you wanted to bring up COVID, you know, I hate talking about COVID.
You do.
I'm so over COVID.
Who doesn't? Who
Yeah.
doesn't?
It is, but it is probably the single event in healthcare that has created so much PTSD in healthcare providers. And definitely during it, we certainly didn't address it. Maybe we couldn't, but we're still not addressing it. We saw so many people leave the bedside. We saw this mass influx of retirement of people who just made the personal decision that this is not of me. You know, JAMA, which is a really known medical journal, they, their psychiatry edition, they posted a really notable study that they conducted from 2020 to 2022. And 49% of any frontline healthcare worker reported PTSD symptoms that were consistent with diagnostic criteria just during COVID alone, which really was an isolated period, but it was so profound that it made such a difference. In 2022, there was a systematic review that I looked at, and it said that 1 in 5 healthcare workers, that's 20%, which is statistically significant, you guys know, met true diagnostic criteria for PTSD. That, for anybody who works in the behavioral health space, that's a huge percentage of people suffering PTSD. And of course, when you looked at the breakdown of that and the vulnerable populations, this was certainly people who worked in the emergency department, the ICUs, and respiratory therapists for sure. But, you know, there's still hope. And that's why I'm doing this work. And we're going to really start looking at burnout. What are your coping mechanisms? If you're my student, you know we're going to talk about this. And really just, you know, what's going on? What are you doing to help yourself get through this? What kind of employee assistance are you receiving at work? And, you know, going on. I know the guys here have a number running. We would love for anybody to call in. It's on the screen, but the number is 908-926-4010. So we certainly welcome any calls. And, you know, kind of looking at, so burnout, what does that actually look like? You know, is it physical? Is it psychological? How does it affect you? I mean, it's definitely, for me, it's really physical first. One of the biggest things I noticed is my back hurts. And I mean, yeah, whatever, I'm old, but I'm not that old. My back should not be hurting.
Wait, define old. How old?
Old. So the old statistically is age 75 and older.
Okay.
Elderly is considered 65, but I'm feeling about 90 these days.
That didn't answer the question.
I don't know. What do you think is old?
Well, I'm 50 and I feel old.
Ouch.
That's not old.
So, no, never mind. No, you guys aren't old. I
I am
apologize.
27.
Yeah.
So
That's what I was gonna guess.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, so my back hurts and I have all these weird GI symptoms. My stomach hurts. I do this thing where I don't eat for days on end. You know, and then the other stuff starts happening. I stop taking breaks because the anxiety takes over and it just feels like if I don't do this right now, I'm going to be behind. And then I snap at people. And anybody that knows me, I'm not a snapper. I have more patience than most, but I find myself doing it and then I feel guilty about it. So I go through this whole abuse cycle about it.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of nurses, when you look at studies, and not just nurses, everybody, we report emotional exhaustion. It's really progressive and it doesn't really hit you all at once. It's not like a brick wall. It kind of builds up. And then it's just day by day, every time you have to go to work and you just feel it build up. And then it's elastic, but it's elastic in the worst way. You think okay, I have stretched as far as I can. This is over for me. I can't do this anymore. and then something else pulls you right back in, pulls you harder.
Yeah.
You know, you deal with it. And I think, like, yes, we deal with this professionally, but I do this in my personal life. I have 4 kids. I'm a single mom too. I have some family stuff going on right now. I'm trying to really help somebody with some substance abuse stuff. And like, I probably have not slept right now for about 48 hours. So I'm there.
Wow.
I'm at that point. And then what I do know from all the work I do is you're not just going to bounce back. I'm not going to go home tonight and sleep a good night and be like tomorrow, like, oh, hey, like life is good.
Yeah.
So, you know, it lingers on, and it builds up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, what burnout typically looks like is continually finding myself in a position where I'm no longer considered a human being. So I don't need to use the bathroom. I don't need to have water. I'm not allowed to eat. And it impacts me almost on a visceral level that I get so angry as a result of not being considered human anymore. You know, like, I'm just like you. I get that you're sick. I get that you have needs. I get that you have questions. But guess what? I need to use the bathroom. Sorry, but I do.
Wait, you're not a robot?
Well, I mean, some days I wonder, but today, no. When I'm at work, you know, there are times when I don't actually, I will be physically grabbed by somebody and said, it's time for this. You know, and, you know, the thing is, if you just let me have that 3 minutes to myself to just drink some water, and I'm fine with being like a farm animal, sitting on the toilet, drinking water and using the toilet at the same time, that's fine. As long as I get that 3 minutes, I can actually reset myself and come back out fresh and be able to function. But, you know, there's things that happen to a human body when it doesn't get its own needs. And nurses, we have needs too.
Yes. I always laugh because one of my most infamous stories where I sort of had a wake up call, I was working in the ER, and the only way I was able to eat, I sat on the nasty toilet in the ER waiting room in Newark, and I ate a granola bar.
Sure.
And I always think about that. And like, I remember
There's no
like,
nasty toilet in Newark. Stop it.
come on now. I mean, like, packaged with heroin
all-
on the side, like it was there.
They're all safe.
But, you know, and I'm like taking the last bite and I'm like, oh my God, I just ate a granola bar on the toilet in Newark.
Yeah.
Like, this is beyond who I am at this point in time. But I didn't die. Other people did that day, but I didn't. So it's like, where is that line? Like, where do you draw the line?
Well, it's outside the bathroom, believe me.
That's a low bar you set for yourself. I didn't die.
I'm an ER nurse by trade. That was where my, you know, stomping grounds were. And, you know, in the ER, and as insensitive or whatever it is, we work on dead or not dead.
Dead or not dead.
You know, and I talk about that a lot. Are you dead or are you not dead? Because that's what kind of attention you're getting from me today.
Yeah.
True.
So, yeah. And what about you? Like, how do you feel when you're feeling like you're burnt out?
So I'm a spiral, definitely a spiral. I just fall right out of the sky. For me, it's mostly functional freeze, exhaustion. I start to be like so obtunded about everything, like no attention span whatsoever. I can't focus. I'm not able to complete tasks. I gain weight because I'm too tired to plan meals. So I nibble, I order out, I do the laziest, low energy things. So my burnout generally has very widespread consequences. And generally, it really impacts my family, the way I function, the way my life functions. Yeah, we set that bar really low for ourselves. We say this is a good enough for us, and it's often not good enough for anybody.
Well, and I always kind of think, like, when I'm talking to colleagues and friends and like my young staff who's falling apart, and I just kind of say to them, would you be accepting of this for your family? Would you be accepting of this for like the people you're taking care of? And we all know the answer is no. So why are you okay with it? Like, why are you okay with feeling this way? And, you know, I always burnout, when we really look at it, it clinically, if we look at diagnostic criteria, it looks like anxiety disorder and it looks like depression. Yet again, I'm going to go back on my soapbox. In this country, we do not recognize burnout as a disease. There is no way to really treat it. There is no way to code for it and bill for it. And we're back to that business bit, you know. And when you look at just like, what does it do to us? We're taking care of you. We're taking care of your kids. We're taking care of your mothers and your fathers. And we actually get to this point. It's insidious. We don't care. We do. We really do care, but it's hard to care. We don't really care about our charting. We just write whatever. And then we end up sitting with an attorney at a table at a deposition, trying to explain away why we wrote that or why we didn't write this. And we have no idea because, again, it was one of the 87 patients I encountered that day in the emergency room. And then we start not caring about our colleagues and we start projecting onto them. And it becomes a really toxic work environment.
Yeah.
I see a lot, and I work as an adjunct professor in 3 different institutions, and sometimes I look at the way that my colleagues are treating these nursing students, and I always make a really valid point of saying they are walking into a profession where they are going to be bullied and assaulted and traumatized beyond anything they can imagine. Why are you doing it to them here? Like, as their mentor, as their professor, why are you mean? Why do you have to treat them this way? And I think, you know, like for me, I love to teach, but I want them to be successful. First of all, I'd love some more nurses. We have nobody at the bedside.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here to see them be successful. I'm not there to torture them because I know the second they walk into their first job, they will be tortured. And I think this statistic, actually, I'm pulling this out of my butt right now, but it's like 48% of nurses, new grad nurses in New York and New Jersey specifically, do not make it through their orientation.
Yeah.
They either quit or they get kicked off. So, or fired, or maybe put in a different unit where they might be more successful. And
That's a dawn
is
statistic.
a
Go with
huge
it.
thing. Yeah, so huge thing. But no matter what, there's a patient in your bed and you are there and you have to take care of them. And we need to do that. So you just keep going. I don't know how, you know, we just got questioned, you're not a robot? Actually, we probably are at some kind of dysfunctional level. But this is all toxic. It's really a lie. And we need to kind of unlearn this mindset and really start thinking about what we're doing. Because again, if this were my loved one, I wouldn't want us really, like, in this capacity taking care of me or my family.
That's a great point, though, Ashley. I mean, you don't want me at my worst taking care of your loved ones. You want me at my best, you know, and you want me at my most empathetic and on top of everything. I think the big thing for us is we could definitely be not teaching our students to just accept this. As you know, the subtext is, well, you're going to be working under stress anyway. So, I mean, you know, if I had a dime for every time I heard that in class, you know, like, well, you better get used to this now. You better get used to it now. Look, you know what? First of all,
Sounds like a police academy.
It is.
You know,
we're one and the same. I told you guys this the last time I was
100%.
it-
Gallows humor. You guys have gallows humor?
and it's
Yeah.
oh, look, believe me.
I
I actually
honestly,
think it's more like Stockholm
What
syndrome. We are like
what do-
identifying with our captors at this point.
Yeah.
No, what do you guys call it? I mean, that's what we refer to it as. Like, when we see these traumatic situations that, you know, you can't do anything but laugh
Well,
at them.
that's what we end up doing. Is just laughing at it.
Well, and we don't call it anything because we call it, this is what
It's
our
our
job is, and
job.
it's completely
That's work.
acceptable.
Yeah.
We don't identify it as anything because we don't know any better.
Right.
And you know, I was talking in the car on the way here. I had a really traumatic pediatric death one time, and we went to the bar and we drank about it all night.
Yeah.
You know, and nobody really appropriately talked about it. We were just like, oh, let's do some shots about this and make fun of whatever's going on now. And I see Don put the statistic up of, you know, 18 to 33% of new grad nurses are leaving the profession within the first year. And that just makes me die.
Yeah.
These kids are paying so much money to go to school and they are working so hard. And for anybody who wants to be a nurse, if you came to nursing school because you thought this was easy, it is not. It
isn't, but
it is incredibly difficult.
you put your heart into it too, Ashley, you know, and I mean, there is always going to be a certain rate of attrition, I think, with any difficult line of work. I mean, you're either cut out for it or you aren't. But I don't think that the place to begin laying the bricks for it is in school. I truly don't. I think that's a better place that we could be, planting seeds of cohesion. And, let's look out for our coworkers and let's see, like Ashley seems quiet today or she snapped at me. And, I'm not going to take that personally. I'm going to say, hey, listen, is everything okay? I just want to check in and make sure everything's okay, because there are some really serious mental health issues that are being started as a result of burnout, overwork, tired, and then just everyday life will come along and trigger, any number of possible consequences, as we see all the time with nurses.
Yeah, and I see Stacy. She made a comment, and that it's killing me right now. It says it's a calling with a consequence. That sucks. I
Yes.
don't. I hate.
Yeah,
saying that.
Yes.
that resonates.
That's so accurate.
Yeah.
So Stacy, thank you so much. Like that is such a powerful statement right there. It is. I became a nurse because I actually wanted to help people 900 years ago. And I was really jaded. I definitely thought this was awesome. You got to
wanna
wear
make a
pajamas and
difference.
shoes, and I'm going to save the
Yep.
world, right? And now I'm reflecting and I'm like, holy crap. But I will tell you, I still tell everybody, I think you should be a nurse. My daughter's at that moment in her life where we're visiting colleges right now. And, I'm really, really pushing her, and I hope she pursues it because I think it's an awesome thing. But, I'm now guiding my kid, who I love more than anything in the whole world, to come into a profession that I know is going to ruin her emotionally. And it's going to put strain on her family. It's going to put strain on her personal life. And, these kids these days, here comes my age, but they have issues coping, period.
Yeah.
All my kids included. So like now I'm looking at my daughter and saying, can she really manage this? Like, is this something she could do? And it's of no fault to her because she's amazing. But I almost feel this guilt of saying to her, go nursing. Like, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
So.
But does that bring up like another issue, right? We have issues with coping, but do we? Should we have to tolerate that environment, right? Should you have to go into a profession that just batters your psychological psyche? Is that something that should be acceptable, or should it change? Should there be change?
Right.
Well, I feel that as the newbie, we should assume responsibility for the death and the disease that we're going to see, and we're going to take that on. We're human beings. We're going to take it on. It's the other part of it.
Yes, that's
that
the part.
I feel is where we can really make a big difference in. And I think it starts with just, as I said, just really keeping an eye on your crew. Like make sure your crew's okay. If something seems off, you can be the bad guy and say, are you okay?
Mhm.
No, really, are you okay? Because you seem like you're not okay.
Right.
And, sometimes you have to do that in this high pressure job. The death, the disease, it's always going to be there. We signed up for this, the blood, the poop, everything. We signed up for it. It is
Wait,
what it
there's
is.
poop involved?
Oh,
There's
yeah.
lots of
so
poop.
much poop. And then in
There's
my
so
personal life,
much
there's so
poop.
much poop. There's poop everywhere.
Yes.
And we love it. We actually
No,
love it.
stop it.
We do
No,
not
we
love
do.
poop.
We do. We love
She's
it.
speaking for herself.
No, please.
Yeah, this
Oh,
ain't that.
please.
This ain't that kind of show. Just
No,
stop
no,
it.
no, come on.
2 hours ago, you might have been in.
When they fart, come on. You love it. Look, it's a big thing. But as for the administrative end of it and the overworking and the just sort of like, well, just take it on the cuff that somebody, grabbed your breast or whatever, or made an inappropriate comment to you, yeah, okay, I'm a 6 foot tall woman. I can take a lot, but I shouldn't have to take any.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then I think like kind of moving into, why is this happening? And I scoured the resources. I looked everywhere. And really when I looked at like burnout, like why is it happening specifically in this profession? And, it's kind of like a culmination, but really just the long hours and then the overtime. And, everybody glorifies the profession. Like, oh, you only have to work 3 days a week. It's 3/12s. And I would like any nurse
only
to tell me
3/12s?
that they work 3/12s here a week, because that is fake. There is mandatory overtime. Even when it's not legal, we figure out a way to figure it out.
Mhm.
Take yourself off the clock for 4 hours and put yourself back on.
Yes.
Yep.
And when you
Mhm.
look at legal situations, you only have to have a 4-hour break and then you can keep on going just like a cop. So, and in that 4 hours, you're probably charting. You're probably spending your 4 hours documenting what you did for the last 16 so that you can work another 16. And then there's that whole work-life balance thing. What's going on there? What are your responsibilities at home? And are you showing up? And then, everybody who is a nurse, their favorite topic is short staffing. But it's real. I cannot tell you, I spent the last 15 years in administration. I don't recall a day where we had appropriate staffing. When you really look at what are the needs of these patients and what does the professionalism and the standard of care say,
Yeah.
we never had it. And then we do these silly things. And I became victim to it and I promoted it. Oh, you're a nurse. It's fine. I know you only take care of kids, but today you can handle geriatric patients. You'll get through it. We'll give you a coffee coupon. You can go get a cup of coffee.
Wait, a coffee coupon?
A coffee coupon.
Wait a minute.
I used
What
to
is
draw
that?
hearts on them at least. Sometimes I put a sticker.
Campy, what's a coffee coupon? Do you know what?
You don't
What
get
is-
coffee coupons?
It's a
Cops
slap
don't-
across the face.
Sounds like it.
Is that the equivalent
Yeah.
of a cop's donut?
It might be.
Absolutely. We love donuts, by the way. I think we like donuts more than cops, but you guys get the rap for it.
Mike
So
says no.
Ah,
yeah.
it's close. Last time I was in the ER, they had a food truck festival outside
awesome.
of the.
We
Yeah.
love food trucks.
Yeah, well,
it's the
I
greatest
just
thing in the world.
sat there on the bed, and all the nurses were like, "Oh, that's all I could talk about. Are you going out to the taco truck? The taco truck was good." And listen, God bless them. I mean, I didn't even blame them. I'm like, do you need a warm blanket? No, go get some tacos. Like, yeah, I would do the same thing. Go,
You do realize we're eating granola bars on toilets.
100%.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
So the taco truck,
Yeah.
truck is real.
yeah.
and
Mike wants
crying.
to know: do they taste different when they're on toilets, or is it the same?
No,
As long as you don't
nothing
touch the
tastes like
heroin
anything.
on the toilet paper roll, you're good. You are good. And and then we talk about leaders and they become sort of numb. And I used to tell my staff, everybody's boss has a boss. So as much as I don't want to stand here and sound like this, I report to somebody too. And then there's just compassion fatigue. We talk a lot about alarm fatigue. We're very willing to recognize alarm fatigue and the phenomenon that we just start ignoring the alarms, even though they're constantly ringing. But nobody talks about our fatigue of compassion, and we become callous. And and then every once in a while you'll catch yourself and you'll be like, wow, I suck. I just thought that, or I just said that. Then ethical and moral dilemmas, and you're dealing with families and decisions that you probably know aren't right. And what are we doing to help people navigate this?
Yeah.
Workplace violence, incivility, whatever you want to call it. And then there's just the administrative bureaucracy. So the rules, the regulations, and we're losing money, so do this and don't do that. And then really, we talk so much. One of the core principles of nursing is autonomy. Yeah, right. How much autonomy, for real, how much autonomy do we have? Little.
Not much.
Right. Little to none. We're very smart. We advocate a lot. We speak up. Nurses are wild, but when it really comes down to being
You're
able
smarter
to
than doctors.
truly
You're smart. You're
you know.
smarter than doctors.
And why? Because we're there 24 hours a
Yes.
day compared to and I have tons
Yes.
of love and respect for my physician colleagues. I will
Absolutely.
never, they have taught me everything I know, but we are there 24 hours a day dealing with it. And you know, they walk into the room for 5 minutes, they say what they have to say, and then 5 minutes later your patient's like, nurse.
You have to know everything
Right.
they know, and you have to be the therapist, and you
Right.
have to be the go-between between the families and all that. They come in for the glory and they walk away. Listen, not taking away from what they know, like you said. I mean, they obviously are well educated, very intelligent people.
Yeah.
But no, you guys, it's no, you
It
guys
is.
are invaluable.
And it's a lot. And you know, and they're busy and they're juggling the OR schedules that they have. And God forbid they delay the OR, and they have their cases and their office, and they have this and they have that. And then they're given a talk 5 minutes later, they're presenting some data, and they have these residency programs they're running. So when they fail at the bedside and then you call them, I hope you have thick skin. I really hope you have thick skin, because you should be prepared for the tongue lashing of a lifetime when you are simply calling them to clarify something, to take care of a patient. And then the beauty of it is the next time you see them, they apologize.
Yeah.
Really sorry about that. Like, you know, it is what
But
it
do
is.
they apologize?
They do. And when they don't, I make them.
They do.
You know how I
They
am.
do to me. They do to me.
Yeah.
Passive aggressive.
My
Ugh.
whole famous line is, my own 4 kids don't talk to me like that. So, sir, you're going to need to like fix yourself, because you and I are not going to work like this going forward. You know, and then we look at just like extra shifts, right? Like, and there's a running joke in the profession, at least of nursing. So we count extra shifts in merchandise.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to go in and do a 12 this week because I'm buying a Coach bag. If I do
Mhm.
2 12s, I'm getting red bottom shoes.
Yeah.
If I do 3 12s, I'm buying a Louis. Like, or I'm going to, this week, I'm putting new tires on my car, and I
Oh, yeah.
certainly didn't work any overtime. But,
Oh yeah.
you know, we convert extra shifts to product. But when you look at it, 92% of nurses who are actively working right now have a side gig.
Yeah.
And that is profound. 47% of nurses are working somewhere between 5 to 10 extra hours a week based on what their commitment to a full-time role is. So, you know, looking at that, and a lot of times it's guilt. It's being guilted into either by their leadership or their coworkers. We don't have anybody. It's going to be really bad. Please, please, please. And we kind of cave. And, you know, it's physically fatiguing. 12 hours at a baseline is a really long shift.
Yes.
It is hard. And I will tell you, more often than not, and I mean, Charmaine, you can tell me what you think, I rarely have ever had an actual break in a 12-hour shift.
Amen to that.
Yeah,
Because
it's not
it's
a thing.
true. It's true. You're lucky. Granola bars on toilets, eating in the hallway, just trying to grab a bite of something that you stole from your coworker, eating out of emissus basins. Like it's runs the rant.
Yeah.
How many times have you
yeah.
had ice water from a urinal, a
Yeah.
male urinal?
Uh-huh.
Like it's and you're sitting there drinking out of a man's pee device with
Wait
a
a
straw,
minute.
and you're fine with it.
And it's
Wait
kind of
a
awesome,
minute.
actually.
Ice whatever man's urinal. Wait.
Yeah, it's the only
The only
know the thing
container.
that- give you the
drink-like
pee in?
structure we have available. So we grab one, we put our ice water in it, we go to town.
Yeah.
Has a
Wow.
lid. It's nice. You can't really spill it. Poke a little hole in the top, put a straw in, and
Yeah, no, I guess you're right.
No, we are.
It's got a good handle.
yeah, it has a
It
handle.
has a
like,
handle. Come on.
this is beach appropriate. This is like excellent. It's great. And then you start getting emotionally depleted. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day, one of my best friends, she picked up a side gig. She's doing per diem now in addition to her whatever. And, you know, we were just talking about like, they had called her. She had been up all day, had worked 3 12s in a row or something. And they're like, you want to work nights tonight? She's like, yeah. And then like come 9 o'clock at night when she was preparing to go in, she's like, what the heck was I thinking? Like I'd had no sleep, and you know, it really like piles up. And then clinically, I think we have to look at this. This is just high super risk for PTSD. We can talk a lot about stress hormones, specifically cortisol. And, you know, if anybody likes TikTok, the 12-year-olds are on there talking about cortisol, but they're not off base. They know.
Wait, people like TikTok?
Oh my God.
Well,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Really?
TikTok. Oh, it's like a phenomenon out there. Don't you remember when we were going to ban TikTok? It was like worldwide meltdown.
I don't have the soundboard set up. Otherwise, you would regret that.
We got time. Take your time.
Guys, stretch your legs. Let's take a break.
Yeah.
We'll come back. Refill your refreshments, and we'll come back and maybe I'll get the soundboard fixed up, and we can talk about banning TikTok.
All right, so we're back, and we took a little bit of time. I love this gig. They have food and bathrooms here. You are allowed to
We
take a
do?
break here. You do. They fed us. There's a bathroom. You're allowed as much time in the bathroom as you'd like. So
No
The
granola
toilet
bars.
paper.
no granola bars, but there is pizza. There is pizza that's amazing. So, and I think like before we kind of took a little break, we started joking a little bit about TikTok and all these young influencers talking about cortisol levels. But when we really look at cortisol levels, it's complete and total endocrine disruption. And it's really burnout that manifests from prolonged stress. And when you are stressed out, your body's going to start producing more cortisol, and it's a stress hormone. That's what this is.
Yeah.
It's protective in really small bursts. It's great. We need cortisol. It's helpful. It keeps us alert. It keeps us ready to respond. It's that fight or flight kind of thing. It lets us respond to challenges. You'll often hear people tell you like, oh my God, I had superhuman strength. I had no idea I was capable of that. And it's really driven by cortisol. But when this is a constant manifestation, when this is forever, and your cortisol kind of stays at that high level, it's going to take a toll. It's going to disrupt your sleep. It's going to make you anxious all the time. You're going to manifest with anxiety disorders. Worst case scenario, it's going to weaken your immune system.
Indeed.
That's definitely not what we want, especially when you're looking at what we're exposed to.
Yeah.
And then it starts to interfere with just simple function, memory, the ability to concentrate and make good decisions.
Right.
And, I often use the phrase, you're wired, but you're tired. So, yeah, you're wired, you looking good, but you are tired. You get irritable, you get super foggy.
Yeah.
And then your body just stays in this vicious cycle of fight or flight. And you really can't calm down. You can't get grounded. You're not getting adequate rest, and you just keep going. And if we don't stop that cycle and disrupt it and bring those cortisol levels down, you're going to start manifesting with chronic disease processes. I see people with hypertension, and it's like, you shouldn't have hypertension, weight gain,
Yeah.
hormonal imbalances. We see, people with inability to conceive, and we start looking into it, and this is what it is.
Yeah.
And then over time, there's, stuff out there that's look at structural changes in people's brains that are directly correlated to increased cortisol levels and burnout. So, when we start looking at burnout and really managing it, and probably first just recognizing that it exists, this is not just emotional wellness. It is truly full body, physical, health maintenance, for lack of a better word. And we really need to make it our priority.
I think that there's a certain level of comfort that comes with it in time too, because we recognize it and we are in that state for such a prolonged period that this feels familiar and it feels right, even though, everything tells us it's wrong, because it's such familiarity that we just accept. Okay, well, I'm not sleeping, whatever. Okay, I'll have 2 or 3 glasses of wine. That'll put me to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we were talking on break a little bit about, different areas of expertise. And we were talking about sexual assault, between cops working in that. And I was a SANE nurse for a while. And, one of the most profound things I saw in children who were sexually abused or violated or whatever, they almost, first of all, kind of accept it, maybe because they feel it's that they did something wrong, they're being punished. But then as they proliferate as adults, and I work with people, this is what I do for a living now, not getting into that, but I work with people who have these traumatic events throughout their childhood. And then I see promiscuity and things like that because they normalize this.
Yeah.
And it's bizarrely the most violating thing that they ever experienced as a child becomes the only thing that's comfortable to them.
Correct.
And it's kind of the same thing. It's familiar. It's how they know how to exist and function. So they continue on. And it really just, it's heartbreaking to watch it.
It's traumatic sexualization. It's before you're ready for it, you're exposed to it. And because of that, you're exposed to something that you think is just par for the course because it's what happened to you. and you don't think anything of it until someone else points out that's not right, this isn't okay, and then all of a sudden you're ostracized, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
And that sucks for kids, that sucks for every victim on every level. But think about being a 10-year-old and then all of a sudden being 16 and you're pointing out that something's not right with you. That's terrible. It's scary. It's traumatic sexualization, but it's a whole nother level, and it's a level of abuse that goes unreported, undocumented, and in so many ways, no one knows about it until it's an issue that's staring you in the face. As nurses, we just went through this recently. My wife was in the hospital for an emergency appendectomy, and we had an amazing. It was unfortunate, but it was an amazing experience because the nurses were phenomenal. The nurses are who you see. The nurses are the front line. They're the ones who show up and handle everything, whether it's giving the meds, helping you when you press the button, or when your idiot neighbor's pressing the button as though they're ass blasting something. Bang, bang, bang,
There's
bang,
idiot
bang.
neighbors in hospital rooms?
God.
You don't say.
Oh my God. And you get a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. You get to see all of this from every perspective. And the material you have, I can only imagine. You could all be stand-up comedians just from working.
Oh, I'm here to tell you, I am not qualified to be a stand-up comedian.
Don't worry about it. Neither is Campy.
I
Neither
am
am I.
definitely not a stand-up comedian. I have been told. So go on. Back to the nursing.
You see everything from the beginning to the end, the front row seat to the greatest show on earth. People at their best, people at their worst, everything in between. And you answer the call every time someone presses that damn button. Now, here's a dumb question. Do you go home at night, go to sleep, and still hear that button in your mind? Like, do you hear?
Yeah, it's like when you leave Las Vegas.
Yes.
Like when you're flying out, it takes at least a half hour before you don't hear. I mean, it's the exact same thing. But here's what's funny. Here's what's really funny. If you put like a heart monitor on your phone and walk through an airport, you'll find all the nurses. Oh yeah, it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious.
We were
Highly
talking about that.
recommend.
We were talking about that. We were trying to figure out the theme music. We were like, what if we put on the heart monitor?
Oh yeah. You would have had us pounding up the stairs. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's trauma. It is like when we were new dispatchers, as we were becoming cops, we'd train on a desk to answer phone calls and answer the radios. We'd go home, we'd sleep. When we'd be sleeping and the phone would ring in our house, we'd answer the phone, "Very please," because you think you're still on the job. When you go home to sleep, you don't go home to sleep. You go home to rest, but the reality is your patients are still in your mind. What's happening is still in your mind. And whether you want to admit it or not, subconsciously, you're still processing trauma. And
Absolutely.
the thing is, trauma, so many people misunderstand what trauma is. People go to the hospital, whether it's for stitches or an appendectomy or whatever it is, and they assume you're there to do your job just as though you're at Chuck E. Cheese, just as though you're at Goodyear Tire, wherever it is. What they don't realize is you're there with a greater responsibility than anyone else can imagine, because if you don't do your job, someone dies.
Correct.
Plain and simple. It's that simple. It's not retreading a tire. It's not redoing the brakes. It's not, oop, we fucked up your smoothie. If you don't do your job, someone dies. They get the wrong medication. They get the wrong treatment. You give this patient in room 480A instead of 480B the wrong medication. Things are going south. And that's a lot to carry. That's a lot. It's a huge burden that we as people don't carry, and we don't appreciate, and we don't think about until it's time to be in that position. And until we were in this position a week or two ago with my wife in the hospital, our nurses were amazing. We were so blessed. We had such a great group of people on our floor. They were phenomenal. And we got stuck in the geriatric unit, which is a whole nother level. It's just the bed that was open.
Right.
Our roommate was an absolute nightmare. Tier 2 swamp donkey, just a mutant on every level. But the nurses were phenomenal. Consummate professionals.
With all due respect.
With all due respect, yes. But like whether it was 2:00 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, the nurses came in and they had a smile on their face. They were like, "You good? We got this." And they didn't wait for the buzzer to be pressed. They just came in and were like, "How you guys doing? You okay?" And that meant so much, because it was validation that, like, we're not just here as a wristband. We're not just here as a number. We're not just here as an insurance carrier. We're here as a patient and we're being adhered to. Our doctors were phenomenal, but you guys, you ladies, excuse me, you folks on the front line were absolutely phenomenal. And we have male nurses too, excuse me. They were just as amazing.
I was going to say it's 2025.
Yeah, I'm
Campy.
sorry.
Come on, let's go, bro.
You know what? And there I go. That's me, Campy, the guy. It was such a great experience. We brought in boxes of Joe and Munchkins just to say thank you and stuff, but it paled in comparison to what they did, because anytime they came in, there was no question. It was solved. It was resolved. And it was like being a cop or being a retired cop. You're used to being in control, type A. I'm in control of the situation. I'm handling this. I had no control in the hospital. None. You had control, and you controlled it beautifully. And it was so impressive because I didn't have to worry. I'm always worried. I'm worried about my wife, but I want to make sure she's okay. And you came in, and it was a breath of fresh air. And it was like, you got this. Good. I'm going to step back. I'm going to play Sudoku on my phone, and you do what you're doing. And it was a relief. And I feel like people don't realize that until they're vulnerable, until they're in a position where they need to rely on you. And I guess that's par for the course. But when we know we need you, that's when we know what your worth is. But the problem is, what is your worth? Like if I won Powerball today, I'd easily dump a shitload of money in to help out with nursing. But when do the other side, whether it's the big pharma or the health insurance, whoever it is, when do they realize what your worth really is? And when do they put an appropriate dollar amount on that?
Yeah, and I mean, like, I definitely did not prepare to have this conversation, but it's a conversation I have had in the past, and I don't know the year, but I don't know if anybody knows the name Redonda Boyd, but she is a nurse that was criminally charged, and it was the first time nursing kind of suffered that criminalization of making a mistake. And she was a nurse at a very well-known university hospital, I believe, in Tennessee. If anybody wants to figure that out and correct me, go for it. But it was the Swiss cheese phenomenon. Everything that could be wrong with her shift that day was wrong with her shift. She was understaffed. She was unexpectedly orienting a person that she was not prepared to deal with. The Pyxis or Omnicell, or I don't know what the brand name was, but the drug dispensing computer system was on override because there was some either software downage or I don't know, maintenance, and she killed somebody. And it was an older woman who needed a CAT scan, and she pulled a medication and she gave a paralytic versus a sedative. Both drugs started with a V. She took some shortcuts. We know better, but we do it because we're stressed and but it was the first time that a nurse she was criminally charged for this in court. And so it was a huge hit to our profession because, we could talk about it all day long and everybody has a different opinion. But what I saw was she was really just another victim of nursing and the pressures and this and that and everything that could possibly be stacked against her that day and she made a horrible mistake, which cost somebody their life, but nobody really gave her any kind of tool to not make that mistake. And, this was on social media for months on end, and so many people had so many opinions about this. And, and I think like overwhelmingly, again, we could talk about this all day. And I have another thing I want to talk about with another nurse later, but I think it's really just, it's scary for us now. Okay, now we're going to get criminally charged. Like it's bad enough that we could lose our license and our ability to provide for our families. And what are we going to do now? Because the joke amongst me and I'm highly educated. I have more letters behind my name than most physicians. I am qualified to do nothing else. So if I tank my career, I'm screwed. I mean, I want to be a bartender. I think it's a lot like nursing.
Now you sound like me.
Yeah. I mean, you think about this. We're medicating you. We're giving you some talk therapy. But the best part of it is like, I don't have to deal with you at 2 a.m. Goodbye. Good luck. And, but like all kidding aside, I am not qualified to do anything else.
God,
and that's really
like
scary. It's a really scary realization.
No, seriously, it really sounds like me. I tell my wife all the time, like if I wasn't a cop, I'd be bagging groceries at a King's. Like I'm qualified to do nothing else.
They're not going to hire you because then you're overqualified.
Correct.
What?
You are screwed.
All right.
Done.
Right.
So
We're authorized to take someone's life with a handgun, and that's totally cool. But if we go to work for JCPNL or PSENG or whatever,
Right.
we have to get all other certifications, and we can't even do any of that.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing, and you're in the same position. You're in the position to save or take someone's life, and that's very challenging. And that responsibility doesn't sit comfortably on your shoulders, because at the end of the day, you're wearing that. You're taking
Right.
that home. Did I leave the right thing? And again, whether it's 2:00 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, the expectation is you're going to perform just as sharp at 2 a.m. as you will at 2 in the afternoon. That kind of sucks. We all handle caffeine differently. We all handle our day differently. We all process our day differently. You're expected to perform around the clock, and that's without shift differential for the
Right.
most part.
But that brings back why that Redonda Voigt case was really important. It's the game changer, right? Before this, we could save or take a life based upon how we perform in the clinical setting, but that case was landmark because now we were criminally prosecuted for it. And so it changed the whole narrative. It changed the safety impact for nurses. Do we feel secure in our job? Are we allowed to make mistakes? Are we going to go to jail because of the mistakes that we make? It adds another facet of tension, anxiety. And we already know that these contribute to burnout. So we're already hard on ourselves. When you think about how we conduct ourselves in a hospital or with our patients, we're already hold ourselves to the highest tier because we know that we can take a life. We can also benefit you tremendously, but there's no safety net for us anymore. That's changed the narrative.
There is no margin of error. With so many
Exactly.
other types of medicine, there is a margin of error.
Yeah.
You know, we're allowed so much. I was an optician for years. We're allowed to be off by so much on your prescription, by the way. And as long as it's within
God,
a
this
certain,
sounds like cops.
it's
Like,
true.
yeah,
I'm
honest,
telling you, we are one. You
Honest to
guys
God.
get a gun. We
Margin
don't.
of
We
error.
can't protect
A
ourselves.
margin of error. Yeah,
I mean,
we're.
Yeah.
It's a tolerance.
the
actually.
difference in generations and the margin of error. Yeah, like this sounds. These are parallels, bro.
It
I
really
think
is.
nurses need tasers is where we're at. I think
Oh
it's what
my
we're
No,
God,
I'm with that, yes.
If we get
yes,
tasers,
yes.
we'd be fine. So
But
here's
I
a question.
wouldn't taser my patients. I would taser my colleagues.
Oh, of course. Oh,
Duh.
listen.
Or
we
both.
know.
I mean, or both.
We know our targets. So I ask this whenever we do the podcast. Haven't been a cop, third generation cop, love the job. My dad was a cop, the whole 9 yards. I always ask, would you want your kid to become a cop in this day and age? Now I'm asking you as nurses, thinking about this, knowing this margin of error and the potential liability, knowing what you know, knowing what you've seen, knowing the great you've done, but also knowing the risks. Would you like your kids potentially to follow, or your nieces or nephews to follow in your
I
footsteps?
100% would.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So the good outweighs the evil. Okay.
Oh my God, absolutely for me because my niece is becoming a nurse. We're in nursing school at the same time. She's
Okay.
18.
Okay.
I'm 55.
All right.
Oops.
And yeah, and I'm so proud
Wait,
of
I
her.
thought you said you were 27.
I'm
Oh
27.
no, wait. Oh, you're
I-
27.
I am a stand-up comedian, and I am 27.
No, Roger that.
Yes.
and yeah, she's.
I don't know what the credentials are for that. I got to get some initials.
She's brilliant, and she's going to be a terrific nurse. I encourage everybody to do it. If you have the stomach for it, do it. There are so many different ways you can be a nurse. You don't have to be a bedside nurse if you don't want to be a bedside nurse. There are other things you can do. This world needs nurses. We need more nurses. Even if you want to be a nursing professor, you're making nurses.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Yes, go into it. I would absolutely advocate any member of my family becoming a nurse. 100%.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of talked before, like I have 4 kids, 3 of which are boys, but yeah, go be a nurse. And my oldest nephew, I'm super proud of him. He just graduated from nursing school. His name's Braden, and I'm super excited for him. My other nephew next in line, he's in nursing school. And I actually asked him the other day, like, he's such a good personality, and I think he's going to be just this awesome nurse. But I asked him, like, why did you decide to become a nurse? And he said, because of all the why? And I'm like, okay, but you know what? Here you go. Whatever it takes, because I think actually you're going to be a really good nurse.
And we're right back to 2 hours ago.
Wait,
I
what,
am the prize.
wait, what is this? What
I
is this
am the
positioning we're
prize.
doing?
See, there you go.
What is this?
Dutch door action. It's
Dutch door action.
it's-
And-
yeah.
yeah.
Something baby.
Sleeping baby, posing
Resting
baby,
baby.
resting
Happy
baby,
baby.
Happy baby,
baby.
happy baby.
I'll do it. I promise.
On the table. Anyhow. But yeah, so I absolutely like, I would love to see at least one of my 4 kids, 25% become a nurse. And, you know, and just because like, and I am one of those people, I believe that everything is available for repair and improvement, and everything can be fixed. And, you know, even the most challenging of patients that I deal with, I think my current personal situation, like I believe that there is possibility, and, you know, we have to get the right people in the right place so that we can make this better. And again, we're taking care of you, we're taking care of your family. So,
Yeah.
you know, anybody who knows any cool kids, you send them my way. I'm going to tell them everything good about nursing. Yeah. What about you? What about your kids?
Absolutely not.
That a girl. Yep. Nope.
Charmaine, give it.
Nope.
Absolutely not. I'm on the now. I did 21 years of clinical, right? So I was at the bedside for 21 years, but I've been in patient safety and quality for 8 years, and I see the flip side of things. I see the bad things. I review the bad things. I see a lot of the mistakes that people make, and the consequences of those mistakes, but also the systems that fail them. And that's what healthcare really tends to do now when we talk about redonda, but we talk about how well our systems serve us, and often they don't. And so until it's repaired, maybe, you know, Ashley will take up the torch and she'll change things.
I'm going to be a bartender. I've got plans. Leave me be. I tried.
Until then, I wouldn't recommend it to my children.
So we asked this also, you know, do you see things turning around for law enforcement, for nursing? Do you see things turning a corner or correcting at some point? And whether it's a political thing, a financial thing, what do you think it comes around? I guess at some point is
I would say that everything comes around, right? Nothing is ever static, right? Everything is dynamic. Things change. But in this climate now, with a lot of the Medicare cuts and looking at different things, and the resources are being cut, well, you know, everything is driven by money, whether it's used the right way or not. You know that, you know, healthcare is driven by revenue.
Sure.
And currently we're getting quite a dive in the amount of revenue that can help us change those systems.
And, you know, right now, and I don't want to talk about politics ever at
Yes.
all, but we're like really threatened right now by a bill
I
that's
do.
going to be coming out all
I want to
day.
talk about politics.
Oh, do you?
I do.
That's a different show.
No, correct.
But, you know, there's
I
a
agree.
bill that we're calling the bad bill right now. It's anticipated supposedly coming out on good old Independence Day. We don't think it's going to, but it's going to significantly cut funding to Medicaid. And I work in the Medicaid space. I work with really vulnerable youth in New York City, and I'm terrified of what is about to be cut. But here's the resilience of healthcare and nursing. We will maneuver right around that.
Yes.
We
Mhm.
will
Figure it out.
circumvent you,
Absolutely.
and we will still take care of people. And that's why, you know, do I think things are going to get better? Of course I do, because we'll just figure out how to make them better in light of what's being
Again,
thrown
this
at us.
this sounds just like cops doing a
Yeah.
defund stuff. Like you can take away all our assets, all the funding, everything. It's still just uninterrupted service. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. You guys do what you're gonna
Perseverance.
do. Yep, 100%.
But that's not transformation. That's survival.
It is survival,
that's
but
true.
we do survive. And, you know, and how do you get to the, and I always talk about that, you know, we define leadership, and we talk about transformational leaders, and woohoo, like, great, let's be one. It's not possible.
Mhm.
I did that for years. It's not possible that you are constrained and strangulated and gagged at all levels. And And so you figure out how to circumvent the gag order, and it's exhausting. And we could talk about burnout again if you want, but
Let's do.
that's where it goes to. So, and then I think like that leads into, I just really wanted to talk about coping mechanisms. And
Yes.
oh yeah. So we love to talk about healthy coping mechanisms. And oh yes.
Have you heard about the bullet old fashioned?
I had one. You make yourself an old fashioned first, and then you top it off with bullet just in case the old fashioned premix isn't good.
That's it.
So I
Yeah,
learned
100%.
things from the cops today.
Winning.
Winning 100%. But yeah, and like it comes down to, we love to talk about healthy coping mechanisms. And I actually participate in a lot of them because I had to take control of myself a while ago. But what about the other stuff we do to cope? And, so for me, I would come home, I would make a drink. That's fine. Like make a drink, make some dinner, and then, maybe the second drink got poured and the third drink. And then, I survey my friends like, oh, I had a glass of wine after work. Oh, I had the whole bottle. Oh, yeah, me too, actually. So, what way is it? And then you start to realize I'm not actually winding down. What I'm doing is I'm obscuring and I'm numbing and I'm covering it up, and I'll fall asleep for sure, but not because I'm getting a healthy sleep and a nice relaxation. And, so I started looking at that and I started changing it. And so every morning I meditate, and, my kids kind of laugh at me, whatever, I don't care. I use an ancient like Indian practice of aburutic oiling, and it's great for me. And, even, there's a lot of research out there that just sitting and breathing for like 5 to 10 minutes a day can truly neutralize
Box
you.
breathing.
And yes, and you would not believe there are apps for this. I mean, you would believe it because but you can literally grab an app on your phone and control your breathing. And so, kind of asks like, why is it that people in these professions, police officers, firemen, EMS, and then healthcare, why do we do avoidance behaviors? Why do we go home and participate in addictive behaviors? Why do we go to the bar and take 20 shots after a kid dies? And
Because
okay?
we dump all the energy we have into the people that we're trying to help.
Yes. Yes.
We spend so much energy fixing other people's problems. We're empaths. We spend so much energy fixing everybody else that when it comes time to fix ourselves, we have nothing left. We have nothing left.
That's just it. When you have nothing else to give, like let's choose the path of least resistance. What looks easy right now? And it almost becomes like this avoidance behavior, these addictive cycles. It's like a haven. You truly feel safe, you feel accepted. And I'm sure it's parallel, but like you can't always go home and lay beside your husband or your partner or whatever and be like, yo, I had this guy and his guts were hanging out today. Because I have done that before, and I get what the hell are you telling me that for? Like gross, and so and then you feel weird because you're like this really sucked today for me, and now you're telling me I'm weird and I'm grossing you out. Please don't, and you're just like, okay. And so then we get into these cycles where we start zoning out, or you get short with your kids. Like I remember one time Jack, who is like my mildest of all kids, he's so awesome. And he literally needed me to sign a permission slip for some, I don't know, field trip. And I said the F word to him. At 7:00 in the morning. I like, and then like, as soon as I did it, I'm like, whoa, like that was weird.
It's not a kid
like,
show. You can say
why
fuck.
Did you
can say fuck. It's not a kid show. It's all right.
Not a kid show. And and then like you start looking and like any kind of emotional investment that you potentially should or could have, it's really kind of lost. And we just start looking at this perpetual need. And it's really interesting because I spend a lot of time in the behavioral health space, and it's a really, really bizarre parallel. And I've recognized this recently, and it's been really difficult for me to kind of process personally and professionally. But there's this bizarre parallel in how we're self-medicated when I look at people who have had very traumatic events in their life, and how they are, as adults or young adults, manifesting this and dealing with it. And I'm like, holy crap, that's what we do too. And we're taking care of you.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I am sitting here giving you therapy and taking care of you, and I go home and do the same thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a hard pill to swallow, to take that and realize it. And then you start saying, oh my God, should I really be doing this? Should I really be sitting across somebody, like advising them on what I think they should be doing? And
Yes.
you know,
Yes, you should.
I agree.
Yes, you should be. 100%.
I agree.
Like I said, it's at our own detriment, but you know, that's why it's a calling. It's not a profession.
It doesn't take away from the training.
no,
You know,
And-
the
and-
knowledge
but you know,
and
let's
your
talking about like
experience.
personal
It
stuff
just
and
makes it hypocritical.
you know, but then you get emotionally involved and then you lose all ability to be
That's true.
objective. And, you know,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that in my personal life, I make excuses for the very things that I talk to patients that, like, you can't actually do that. And
Yeah.
like, I'm presenting reality, but when it kind of trickles over to the personal space, you lose all capacity to do that.
Mm.
And maybe it does give me a little empathy and maybe it grounds me a little bit because I see like this person sitting across from me who is so far gone is not much different than me. I just might have a little bit more tools in my toolbox to address this than you do. Or I have a lot of preparation because I do this all day, every day. And I just said today, like, I never realized my bandwidth and my level of tolerance was this high.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because every time I'm done, I'm like, let me give it one more try.
Yeah.
Let's just like sit down for a minute and take a deep breath and we're going to do this again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and you know, and then you want to talk about hormones. Let's talk about dopamine surge,
Yeah.
you know, and that's what that is. It's that little pop of dopamine. And we kind of say, oh my God, that feels good. Right. And anybody who goes to the gym, I spend a lot of time in the gym in an effort to probably not drink for breakfast.
Mhm.
You
Wait
know,
a minute. You're not supposed to drink for breakfast?
I mean, actually, there are
Alcohol.
breakfast appropriate
Yeah.
cocktails. This is a whole phenomenon. And
Oh.
if you're like a Jersey housewife or something, you are rocking because you can make.
All right, I thought I was doing it wrong for a minute. Never mind.
Bourbon for breakfast.
Do you? No.
I
You
guess-
have to have
Accepted.
like a girl drink, like a pineapple, some bullshit with a.
Oh, you
mint
can do an
leaf.
Aperol spritz. Yeah,
Yes.
they got.
with
That's
bourbon on the
perfect.
top.
Yeah. That's fine. That's totally fine. That's
With
good.
the bourbon.
Oh,
float.
it's science. If yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's good.
Or you can put it in your scrambled eggs.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know you can.
What can we
Allegedly.
scramble with eggs?
Tequila eggs. Oh,
Oh
they're-
my
they're
God.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Tomorrow
Yeah,
there will be
with
an
a little bit of
episode from my
salsa,
kitchen.
You're gonna love it. It's delicious.
Salsa.
Breakfast of champions. Who needs Wheaties? That's childish.
No, seriously.
But yeah, you know, so we get that dopamine surge and your brain, like, you know, this is who we are. This is human nature. It's how we're wired. And you get this little reward and it feels really good. And it leads you down the road of addictive behaviors. And, you know, I have a very broad scope opinion that we all are addicted to something. And, you know, it manifests very differently. And some people manage it very well.
Mhm.
They control it very well. And then there are people who, unfortunately, and we could talk about, you know, epigenetics, which is my new favorite conversation, but I don't want this to be scholarly. I'm having a good time here. So, but, you know, there are some people like
I
taking.
scored 8-9 down my SATs.
Yeah.
Do not start to talk about epigenetics. Wait, is that a position? What are we talking about again?
It's an injection.
Oh, all right. Yes. Okay.
in the rear.
Hold on. I'll find a graphic.
Dutch door action. It comes back around. Yeah.
Subcutaneous.
No. But yeah, you know, and like we look at alcoholism, right? And alcoholism is serious disease, but it is just that, is a disease. It's
for sure.
genetically driven. And you know, it's really hard to understand why is it that you and I can sit here together and have 2 drinks and I am completely fine. I remember everything. I function well. And you make a mass disaster of the situation and you do these awful things and then you don't remember it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you end up in these predicaments and alcoholics lose jobs and you know, alcoholics is the tip of the iceberg, but there's a lot of, you know, science to addiction and addictive behaviors. But at the end of the day, it's a coping mechanism of some variety. It's avoidance. It lets us associate our stress level and maybe overcome challenges or at least address them. But again, you are going to burn out on this, and you really end up in these vicious cycles. So I think we do have to pay attention to what we're doing to cope. I don't think that everybody has to abstain from substance use and things like that, but I think we have to understand, how does it actually impact us, and are we really doing the work on the other end to kind of counterbalance how we're manifesting and dealing with stress and things of the such. Yeah. So what do you do to cope? I want to know.
Oh, for me, well, I do like to lie in bed with a box of wine, and
There's something wrong with that. Sounds
Absolutely
great to
not.
me.
Absolutely not.
I mean,
If only you could get a Foley catheter.
I feel like I got to plug the soundboard in. All right, you're coming in.
ew, I'll just use a Pickwick. Sorry.
Oh God.
I know that was a little bit much.
At least we know what's happening when we're old.
It works. It
yeah,
works.
It's,
You get it done.
yeah.
I will have a few drinks. Absolutely, I will drink. Yeah. I do know when to stop.
Yep.
100%. I do spend a lot of time at the gym myself. I feel like the cardio, the weights, the monotony. I like to cook as well. I like things that I don't require any calculations. Although I love math, I really like to just pull back and just do something that's physical, monotonous, and doesn't require any sort of diagnostic, analytics, or calculations. Gardening as well is another thing, although I'm not an outdoorsy girl at all. I can't stand bugs. But anything like that is just physical, and again, just doesn't have to fold in with any sort of decision making other than just functionary.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'll definitely have a couple drinks.
Well, and I also I recently took up golfing, and I'm at the I'm doing virtual golf, so let's not even be serious here, but it is really, really just, I'm not good at it. I suck really bad. But it's a way to I'm learning something new.
Right.
And who would have ever thought golf is really seriously hard? It makes you sweat.
Yeah.
You're at the
Yes.
gym when you're golfing. And I'm this is really weird.
Especially if you're playing with people that take it very seriously.
Yes.
oh,
That's game changing.
Yeah.
If we're all going out, we're having a great time, and everybody's relaxed, that's one thing. But if you play with that one person that takes
Yeah.
it very seriously,
It makes it not fun.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And people get serious about this. And I'm relax. This is virtual, but but what I found is it's really kind of cool, because now I'm upping it, and I'm when do we actually get to go to a country club? I want to go to a country. I want to get a golf cart and make this real. And they're yeah, you should figure out how to hit the ball with the actual club before you go to the country club. And I'm all right, yeah, you're right.
Day golf with day drinking with day carts is phenomenal.
Oh, let's
because
go.
there's no expectation. It's casual. It's easy, and it's all right, let's hit it till someone catches up with us. All right, stand by, let them get past, and then we'll go from there. That's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
yeah, you
But-
play closest to the pin.
Yes.
Yep, 100%. Yes.
But when there's the one person who's all right, we gotta get this. Let's go. 999. Slow your roll.
Yeah, calm down, sir.
Yeah.
Breathe. And then we go back to the dead or not dead. So I'm going to pull you out on the golf cart and be are you dying right now?
We're
Because
doing
you suck.
okay. Has anyone stabbed? Has anyone been shot? No, we're winning all the way around.
Do you want
Yeah.
some of my water,
Yeah.
my wine bag? Because I will carry
My
a
camel pack
bladder-
with my
yeah,
wine.
A bladder of
I
my
woke up
bourbon.
with a box of wine. Do you guys want any?
I'm that nurse.
Brilliant.
Oh gosh. So, I kind of shifting to something that's really serious, and something that this is a couple years old, January 2023, and this hit me really hard. I actually cried. At some point in time, I just really was wow. But there was a nurse, Lindsay Clancy,
Mhm.
and this is a really, really just awful, conversation. It's heartbreaking, but it really kind of brought forward to me. And this is when I really started thinking about this burnout space. And Lindsay, was this nurse and she was suffering really badly. And her suffering was postpartum in nature and nobody really noticed it or recognized it. She was a labor and delivery nurse out of all things, up in Massachusetts in a really great facility. She was a mom of 3 really beautiful kids. And, she was suffering from severe postpartum mental illness. And she killed her 3 kids. And then she tried to take her own life. And her kids at the time were 7 months old, 3 years old, and 5 years old. And she strangled her kids. And then she jumped from the window of their 2nd-story house. Fortunate or unfortunate for her, she survived. It really just was a lot of media coverage. And again, here we come in with everybody's opinions and the comments and, as details kind of became factual and they looked into this case. And it was really clear that whatever went on, this nurse, she was not okay.
Yeah.
She was taking multiple psychoactive drugs, psychiatric medications. She was actively engaged in psychotherapy and treatment. She did everything right to try to help herself. Her provider recognized this in her. I believe she had a history of it before. And she took extra leave from her job. But really, nobody really saw the depth of this. Nobody really saw how bad this was for her. And again, there were all these conversations that started spiking up, talking about postpartum behavioral health and mental illness, which we've been trying to talk about that for a long time. And, there's this stigma of like, oh, you just had a baby. Like, what's your problem? Right? No, it's real. And, just the toll of caregiving, burnout from her professional job. Like, this is a woman who was likely very burnout before she ever decided to have a baby. It kind of goes hand in hand with that postpartum component of what's going on that we're not paying enough attention to. And then the burnout of our profession. This woman was a labor and delivery nurse. If there is any nurse who knows about this, it's her. It just really was like quite heartbreaking to see kind of, it's devastating. What happened is devastating. Nobody really stepped in because I don't think anybody really recognized it. Her kind of progressive symptoms and her decline, it wasn't urgent. It wasn't an emergency. Nobody was dying. Again, we have to kind of look at that, but it was real. And, there's all these pressures and expectations. Be a mom, take the freaking pictures, put them on social media. Oh, you need to get back to work because you only get this much maternity leave and we don't have any money. And,
no
life
one
is
asks
expensive.
the lion if they need help.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And,
what it is.
just keep going. And, I think the worst part of this is 3 kids lost their lives over this.
Yeah.
3 small little children who really just,
Yes. But also she
lost her life. Yeah. And,
you know what I mean? And that's
her
one of our
husband.
sisters,
And
that's one of us.
And I think like when we look at this case again, I'm not getting into all the things, but I really don't want this to be reduced to just judgments and headlines. And I think we need to look at it as almost like this is a mirror and it reflects a healthcare system that really fails to care for the people giving the care. We don't take care of ourselves. I think we need to listen more closely. You said earlier, you need to look at people and say, are you okay? We need to check on our colleagues. We need to, I do a lot of work in the trauma-informed care, which we'll do another episode about that sometime. How about the trauma-informed caregiver? Like who's helping us and recognizing, and then there's just that stigma and that silence and mental health. It's such a stigma period. And now you want a provider with a mental illness? Like, nobody wants to do that. So I think, when you look at your peers, like what are the things you're overlooking? Like, what are you not addressing with peers on the job? And what do you kind of just, I think here's another cop parallel. How many times have you sat next to a coworker and went, oh, whatever,
Right.
Yeah. Like clearly he's affected, but
Oh, he's checked out. Yeah. 100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
right. And maybe it'd be better to say like, dude, you okay? Like what?
You want a timeout? You want to, yeah.
Why don't you go home? I got
Yeah.
this. We'll figure it out. Has anybody ever said to you, why don't you go home? Because I never got that. Definitely not.
I can't say I have either.
Yeah, no. So, and then we have to look at the system. Are we really helping people or are we punishing it? And I see a lot of stuff with cops, and clearly the stuff that gets thrown on the big screen, I'm not really sure, but well, what was going on there? Did somebody help that person, or now we just like ostracizing the one mistake they made that one night?
That's right.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think we're so forced to be productive and to meet the bottom line and to meet these metrics and whatever, that does anybody notice that there's somebody suffering there? Does anybody take note of it? She's been a mess for the last 3 weeks. I don't even think we recognize it. I think we're all so stuck in this rut that we just keep doing it. And, I think with that, I think we have to normalize these conversations about mental health, in providers and healthcare and in cops and first responders. And then I think we have to start challenging the belief that silence is strength, because it is absolutely not. People who sit in silence, that is not a mechanism of strength. And I think we have to start building systems that are going to care for caregivers, and not just when there's a pandemic. Cool, thanks for the pizza.
Wait,
right?
there was pandemic?
No.
I don't. I'm sorry. I know you didn't want to talk about politics.
Time,
I'm sorry. I take it back. There was definitely a pandemic. 100%. I apologize.
Yeah, but for real, it was and the most we did for people was, here's some pizza, because some business down the street sent that over, and we always kind of laugh, if we see another pizza, we're gonna kill somebody, for real, not a patient, maybe I don't know, you, but. And I saw Mike was asking a question, but I didn't quite see it. Something about leave. He was paralleling cops. Let's see.
Let me see what he got here.
Let's
see. You're saying in law enforcement. He says, do nurses have to take a leave like cops, or is their version being modified for nurses?
So I know what you're talking about. If something happens, we put you on paid leave of absence while we investigate. We are detectives. And
I hate that word, investigate.
We're going to do an investigation.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
Oh, I love Jason Bourne. Oh, please.
Oh boy, here we go.
But yeah, so we put people on paid leave of absence, probably the same that you guys get, and we compile the facts, which and I'm gonna put it out there. I was in administration for a long time. It's one-sided facts. It's what we'd like to collect. It's who we'd like to talk to regarding what happened. You're sitting at home peeing your pants over your job, and we don't ask you, who should I ask on your behalf? There is no attorney here. And then we call you in for decision day, and it goes one of two ways. You get fired, peace out, or you don't, and you come back to work. So
there is no advocate.
No. Although I will say, I worked a lot where nurses had union representation. And they do have a little bit of advocacy, but again, it's one of those, we'll take our chances type thing.
Yeah.
And I've actually had environments in which the union said, fire her, because they're not interested in protecting somebody with that kind of behavior. Now, the behavior was pretty rash, but yes. So that's kind of where we are. Yeah. So, fun topic. Do you see a therapist?
I don't see a therapist.
You don't see a therapist?
No, I'm Irish, honey. Impervious.
They don't have therapists in Ireland.
It won't work.
I thought you were Canadian.
Yeah, I'm an Irish Canadian.
I thought they were French.
Wait, yeah.
Tell them what to do.
Oh, je m'appelle français.
No habla español. I apologize.
Je m'excuse. Americans.
No, but no, therapists, I do. I see a therapist every 2 weeks. I didn't want to at first. It was I saw it as a complete and total weakness. I saw it as something I didn't need. I don't need this. I take care of people. I'll be fine. And, I looked at statistics, and it looks like about a third of nurses actually seek out some kind of therapy. Yet the largest majority of nurses report complaints and symptoms consistent with somebody who would benefit from therapy. And I think on the biggest piece of this is that therapists need therapists, and that's kind of my guiding principle.
True.
I do talk to my therapist, who I have a very long-standing relationship, twice a month, and sometimes we chat and catch up about our kids. I mean, it's that silly, but it's somebody that's unbiased and uninvolved in both my personal and professional life that I can have a conversation with, that she's not going to tell anybody about it, and she's going to give me really unbiased guidance.
Well, they have no skin in the game.
Yeah, and it really keeps emotional clutter out of my system. And it really, really helps me to kind of navigate what I'm currently dealing with. And, again, right now I'm dealing with a little bit of a lot. So I've been talking to her every week, and I talked to her Thursday, and when she called, I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad to hear from you. It was like talking to an old friend. But
Well, Cough says talk therapy is a waste of time. I don't even know what that. Yeah, I don't-
it's a waste of time.
Is there another kind of talk
There's
therapy other than talk
there's
thancy? I don't.
Tons of
Can't be
different kinds of
mine.
therapy.
Yeah.
And, and I always talk to people, and like, if you feel like it's a waste of time, that's absolutely fine. You can make that determination. And, sometimes talking to your friends is enough, and
It's
finding a
therapeutic.
parallel, and, having that person you can go to. And a lot of things, when you look at therapy in general, and it's kind of like dating, you're not going to have a great relationship with the first therapist you start working with.
That's
And
true.
you may have to say, this relationship really isn't productive for me. It's not helpful. And then you move on to next, and you find somebody different. So I think it really is about human beings and nature. And there's other kinds of therapy, and even the simple things like pet therapy and music therapy and art therapy. And there's a lot of different choices out there that can help somebody at least kind of channel energy or relieve stress. What about you, Charmaine? Do you see a therapist?
I used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't anymore. But
Any-
it's never a bad idea
No.
to see a therapist.
Well, and that's what I always say. I'm not on any medication. I don't have any diagnosis that a therapist, literally none. But I kind of look at it, at least from my angle, I look at it as wellness. This is just well care. This is like
Yes.
me getting my flu shot every year because I don't want to get the flu and feel crappy. So I look at it kind of as just a little bit of health maintenance. And, and I see when I'm struggling a little bit, or, I've had some incredibly difficult cases at work that I've been working on. And I'll just say to her, you know what, I think I want to talk to you about this again next week, because I want to kind of tell you where I'm at and what I did and how I'm feeling. So I think it's, like everything else, it can become acute, and then it can just be maintenance for a while.
Mhm.
It can be hard to put yourself out there that way, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think it can be hard to be that vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, I think looking at that, so just wanted to talk a little bit about, what do you kind of do when you're feeling heightened or crisis or anxiety or whatever, to kind of bring yourself back off the edge and center yourself. And, I always tell clients, and we are being politically correct in healthcare today, and we have been instructed that patients should no longer be called patients. They should be called clients.
Wait, what?
Yes. So I'm doing my best. And I work overwhelmingly with the pediatric and adolescent population. So I just feel this weirdness of calling them my clients, but they are my clients, which just really feeds that whole crappy phenomenon that this is a business. Forget.
And that's crazy, because pedophiles are no longer allowed to be called inmates. They're
Right.
to be called patients. So that's
So they've graduated.
they're in
but-
they're in treatment for
patients.
yeah. In
Yeah.
New Jersey, you can actually get in trouble if you refer to a inmate who is a pedophile as an inmate.
Wow.
He is not an inmate. He is a patient.
Interesting.
He's in treatment for.
Does everybody remember Chris Hansen?
Oh yeah.
To Catch a
Yes.
Predator?
Yes. 100%.
Yeah, he's got a new gig, and it's much in the same, but he renamed it. But I was watching it on YouTube, and that's an interesting, just to think about looking at. But now they're patients, although
they're in treatment. They're in treatment.
In
They're
treatment.
they're not really criminals.
Well, then we should come up with a hybrid word for them.
Hybrid.
hybrid.
Mm,
Well, I mean, they are both criminal and patient, crimi patients.
mm.
I don't know.
I'm gonna sit this one out.
Creation. Creation's
We'll
very
figure it
appropriate, Yeah.
But they're also thieves. They steal other people's lives.
Yes.
They don't just
But they're patients.
commit crime or have a psychological impact or defect, which I would like to say it's a defect, but
Right.
they're stealing.
It's
other
absolutely a
people's lives.
defect.
You are
It's
absolutely-
100%
They are
correct.
predators, and there is a difference between a criminal and a predator. A predator goes after somebody who is defenseless. That is a
Yes.
totally different mindset. That is there is
Yeah.
no place in society
You're
for a
right.
predator. And change
No.
my mind.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I work with my clients, or I'm going to stick with patients because that's where I like to be. But coping. So we need to be really careful. If coping is not about feeling better about yourself and feeling good, and although that sounds a little weird, it's really about staying connected to yourself and finding a good outlet to channel your energy and really deal with problems. And we have a lot of people out there that feel as though they're conquering all these problems by just making themselves feel better. But on the other end of that, you got to really look at, well, what are you doing to make yourself feel better? And is it a healthy mechanism? Are you hurting other people in the process? And look at kind of what that means. And self-care, like I talk a lot about on self-care when I do little posts on social media. And it's really like, that's what changed everything for me. I'm getting ready to publish a book about 5 minutes and what 5 minutes can mean to your world and your everyday life. And it's really just regulation through intentional daily practices. And 5 minutes can be the smallest amount of time, but it can truly make things better and make things more manageable. Looking at mindfulness, exercise, good sleep. So I am such an advocate for sleep. And we always hear, oh, you should get 7 to 9 hours of sleep per day. You should. You really should.
seven.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
How many
great
hours
would
a
that
day
I
do
got
you sleep?
1.5
I know.
last night.
Honestly,
And I'm
since
running the
this
board,
term
so don't worry
began,
about it.
I'm sleeping about 3 hours uninterrupted.
Yeah,
and
none of
then
us sleep.
I'll be awake for an hour or two worrying about school, and then I'll go back to sleep for another 2 hours. So I would say maybe 5.
Yeah. And I'm very busy, like solving the problems of Candy Crush on my phone at 2:00 in the morning. Like, I'm like,
Yes.
what are you doing? Like, put it down. Or I'll start watching something on YouTube or Netflix. And then I'm like, what? It's okay. Now it's 3:00. Like, okay. And I have to get up soon. So
Well, that's healthier than ruminating, which is what I do for that 2-hour interval.
I can do that too. So. What about you? What do you think?
I'm a social media addict. I just scroll endlessly.
Ugh.
Yeah, it helps me avoid my problems. Helps
Yeah.
me avoid my tasks.
It's doom scrolling though. You can't
Yeah,
do that.
it's
Yeah.
terrible.
You can't do that.
Do you
It
do that?
Definitely is.
Yep. So I think, just looking at how do we regulate ourselves? How do we get out of this rut? And so there's a lot of different mechanisms we can talk about, but my favorite one that I share with most of my kids that I work with is really a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding exercise. And it's super simple. And even the most elevated individual in crisis can take this and really conquer stuff. So tell me 5 things you can see right now. And you're going to start conversing with them. And anything in your line of sight can be, what color is the wall over there? Do you see a specific shadow on the floor? And really make your person that you're working with like focus. Now tell me 4 things that you can feel right now. So maybe they can tell me what the texture of their shirt feels like. What does the air temperature feel like in this room? And it's going to start to normalize you and pull you back into your body.
Yeah.
Then tell me 3 things you can hear right now. And at this point in time, like, people are able to focus and they start listening, and you're going to start seeing they're not going to point out the most obvious things they can hear, because now they're internally focusing and they're going to hear things that are in the distance, like a bird chirping or something like that, and you'll start to feel them calm. Then tell me 2 things you can smell right now. And, it can be anything. We all smell different things on different levels, but really looking at that. And then tell me 1 thing you can taste. So even if it's just what is lingering in your mouth right now, what's the last thing you ate? And then really kind of get into, how does all this feel? How does it feel good for you? How does it feel bad? And again, there's so many other ways to kind of ground yourself and cope with things. But I really love that exercise because it's not a 2-second affair. You really have to kind of start going through it, and step by step, you'll kind of feel yourself normalize and calm down a little bit. So, and then I think kind of just looking at what actually keeps you going. So professionally, what keeps you going, Charmaine?
Me, my kids. My
your
kids
kids.
keep me going. Yeah.
Yep.
My reason for living.
Nice. And you?
It's for me, it's when I'm just such a team player. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's when this keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's pulling in the same direction. We're all from different
Same as
areas,
law
but we're
enforcement.
all on a team. We're all moving in the same direction at once. And, there's just nothing more rewarding for me than being a part of a team and just being in that moment. I think it just brings me into that moment of that touching the grass. And
Mhm.
it's happened a few times today with just, we've all connected on a certain level and we all have some commonality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, like, for me, like, over the years, one of the most profound things that always kind of sticks with me is I'll be in ShopRite or, whatever. And a patient I took care of remembers my name. And that is the most meaningful thing I've ever had. It sticks with me. And just really working with people. I work with really vulnerable kids, and finding a way to help them find language to describe what they're dealing with, and to maybe bridge a gap between their parents or their peers or their teachers or whatever. It really gives me purpose in my teaching. Watching my student maybe understand something for the first time ever, and then especially when they tell me. I actually got a message on Instagram today, and one of my students was just like, "This is what you're always saying." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you finally, the influencer said it, so you're on board with me now. Awesome. Like, love you." But
They
and I
love
think
their influencers.
I
Yep,
know.
that's everything.
it is. It's true. And it's really interesting to always look at, the unqualified person who finally breaks the ice and gets through to. And I'm fine with that, actually. If you want to get good information out there and you're cute, rock on, like, help us out around here. So I think that's good.
Yeah, definitely when your patients remember you, that's got to
Yeah.
be the greatest thing. I was a labor and delivery nurse for the 21 years that I worked night shift. And one time we were laboring this patient. She wasn't actually my patient at the time. I came in to help out with my coworker. And she points at me and she goes, "You're Charmaine." And I'm like, "How do you know?" And she opened her baby book. She goes, "You've been here." She was having her 4th baby. "You've been here for every birth that I've had." She goes, "Thank God you're here today." She goes, "I tell my kids stories about you." And I'm like, "Oh my God."
That's
I
awesome.
did not remember her. And that made me a little sad, but she opened her book and showed me pictures of me with her pictures of all her births. And she took her birth before.
You guys have no idea.
It's
the-
my
the-
my
the-
most treasured memory, actually.
You have no idea the impact you guys make, and I mean, again, it's too long of a story to get into now. But my daughter, when she was born, she was given a 25% chance of living. I'm scrolling to try to find the picture of when they actually told me that she wasn't going to make it through the night, which is there. She did 7.5 months in the NICU. And I can tell you right now that my wife still remembers every nurse that she dealt with, and all the little details. To the first time that my wife was able to actually hold my daughter was Christmas Eve, and the nurse put they had to do IVs in her head because that's the only place they could find the veins, and they tied little bows over
Oh, wow.
the IVs. Yeah, it was. Yeah, you guys have no idea. The impact you make on these families, they will remember it forever. Not for nothing. That's my daughter now at 17 years old. 17 years later, after she was supposed to
Yeah.
have a 25% chance
It's
of living.
Amazing story.
No, you guys do unbelievable work. And never underestimate the impact. And these families will remember you forever.
Yeah. And that, that's awesome. And I think just like kind of wrapping up time here, but to everybody listening, just, burnout, you're not failing. It's you're carrying way too much for way too long and you're not taking care of yourself, probably because you're not given the opportunity to, but you really deserve better. You deserve care. You're taking care of some other people. So you're not just a pair of scrubs. You're not just a role, the extra shift today. You're a human being like everybody you take care of, and you're worthy of care and healing. And, I think just really, somebody said to me one time, I wish you would show up for yourself with the same urgency that you show up for other people. And that was pretty like, ouch. So,
Right.
I kind of use that as a guiding principle. So, we're excited because we're going to have some male nurses on maybe next month. And that's going to just
Outstanding.
be a whole bunch of fun.
Outstanding.
And, we're going to talk a little bit about bullying in the workplace. And
Wait, there's bullying?
Oh,
I mean, not really. You're just a wussy.
Really?
I mean, get over it. Listen,
Tommy Werther.
like, isn't
Sorry.
that what you tell your kids? So now we're calling out poor bullied
they're
Pops
just jealous
by
of
name.
you.
He's gonna be on my couch soon. Poor guy. But yeah, so
And the guys, the great. If anybody would like to do a plug, anybody has any plugs?
I thought about this. I wanted to, and I totally forgot. Anybody have anything to plug, promote?
I do.
I figured you would.
Do it.
Charmaine
Charmaine.
always has.
Go with it.
So I'm a labor and delivery nurse. I created this book.
Yes.
Yes, it's called Rock and Roll Labor Optimization. It's a great way to decrease cesarean rates, decreases morbidity and mortality. So that's up there in Amazon.
Yeah. And actually, I'm going to post on my social media pages tomorrow. My website is going live at midnight tonight. I'm excited.
Outstanding. What is it?
Code Lavender. I don't know. Don't put me on.
Oh, go. It's got to be .org, no, or .com. Code
CodeLavenderPodcast.org probably. I got to look at it, but it is at midnight tonight. It is going to be rocking and rolling. So I'm going to put something on there for Charmaine's publication.
Beautiful.
Really just looking at something that one small little thing we can do as nurses, but really like women can read to protect themselves and their babies.
Outstanding.
Yes.
Campy, you got anything that you want to plug?
No,